So if you like the Moto X Pure Edition but need something just a little bit hardier, you might want to consider this, the new Droid Turbo 2 by Verizon and Motorola. It takes just about everything we liked from the Moto X Pure Edition, sucked out a lot of the charm, and placed it all in a body that's significantly sturdier. Let's take a closer look. We've got an octa-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 810 chipset. Now that's paired with 3 GB of RAM and an Adreno 430 GPU. That combination makes for exceptionally snappy performance. A lot of that is helped also by the fact that it runs a near stock version of Android 5.1.1 Lollipop. And I say near stock because since it is in fact a Verizon phone, it is loaded to the gills with Verizon bloatware. At first count, there was something like 9 Verizon-specific applications, not to mention a few others that were probably loaded on there to fulfill some contractual agreements. Some of them are useful, like the Kindle app, and some of them are considerably less so, like Slacker Radio or a pair of Candy Crush knockoffs. Enjoy, I guess. Turning to the rear, we also have a 21 megapixel camera, and it's actually one of the better ones we've used on an Android device. It's not going to put your LG G4 or Galaxy Note 5 out of commission, but colors are generally really vibrant and we do get lots of detail. I don't like it quite as much as even, say, the Nexus 6P, but for quick shots and landscapes, it'll do really, really nicely. There is also a 5 megapixel front-facing camera for selfies, but it takes selfies, it's completely adequate. We don't really need to go into too much more than that. Honestly though, if you're thinking about buying the Droid Turbo 2, it's going to be because of its shatterproof screen. Let's dig into that a bit. We have a 5.4-inch OLED display that's covered by not one, but 2 separate layers of plastic, plus an additional touch layer on top, just to make sure things continue to work properly even if you've dropped it one too many times. Now, I'm normally the kind of person who feels really, really bad whenever I break a phone screen, but it should handle it pretty well if you do stuff like this. It's only ever happened twice, but I've had to push myself out of that comfort zone while testing the Turbo 2. I've thrown it across the asphalt, I've dropped it out of my hands just for no reason, and thankfully Verizon and Motorola's claims were true to fact. The Droid Turbo 2 can take a beating, and take a beating really well. That's not to say it's in perfect condition. The metal around the screen is a bit flaky and chipped, but all in all, it held together really, really nicely. Oh, and to top it all off, it does also have a sealed 3,760 milliamp hour battery. That's one of the biggest we've seen in an Android smartphone this year, although it's not quite as large as the battery we got in last year's Droid Turbo. Regardless of that, in the Engadget standard video rundown test, it did last for about 13.5 hours. Now, Verizon and Motorola say you can squeeze 2 full days, that's 48 hours of power out of this thing on a single charge. In my testing, that wasn't always the case. In general, I saw about a day and a half of use before I had to charge this thing again, although if you play your cards right and use apps sparingly, you could theoretically get to the 48-hour mark without too much trouble. When all said and done, the Droid Turbo 2 might lack somewhat in the charm department, but we can't argue with its power. There's plenty of horsepower here thanks to the powerful Qualcomm chipset and the big old battery baked inside, and the shatterproof screen is just icing on the cake. If you're on the market for a sturdier kind of smartphone and don't mind something that looks like a mid-range LG from 2 years ago, the Droid Turbo 2 just might be the way to go. Just be warned, the privilege will cost you. This is a $624 phone. You can either pay that outright or monthly installments over 2 years.